This is what creation looks like. This is what the fire feels like. There's something stirring within us. If your life has suddenly, you've got it on track, that's the song I'm going to sing, that's exactly how I'm going to do it, and then something jumps in, it's because there's a fire of creation, there's something going on, and this is the alchemy of spirit. We turn that straw into gold. We turn that idea into reality. And actually, it's spirit within us who does that through us when we say yes to it. What a brilliant vehicle, a brilliant freaking vehicle Gia is, because she says yes to the fire of creation. And it's going to stir us. It's going to move us. Richard Rohr calls it the wisdom pattern, where we start off with order. We move into disorder. Even when we think, well, I've got this, I'm cruising along, everything's in order, everything's working just fine, I got this, and oh, what? What? That's the disorder. And then we don't know which end is up. But man, we feel the fire. We feel that going on. We see the dross that's coming from the fire. We don't know where it's leading. But eventually, if we are willing to say yes and align in agreement with that greater idea, that greater presence, that greater life that has brought us here in order to dance this dance, if we say yes, then we move into a higher level of order. We are in great disorder right now. God bless us, everyone. God bless the disorder. Because it is a revealing. It is a greater revealing. You know, I wrote this talk 3 times this week. I wrote it on Wednesday. I rewrote it on Saturday. I came home from an art exhibit last night, an opening, and I wrote it again. Because there's stuff going on. There's stuff going on, and it comes through us. And we are these beautiful creations of spirit in this spiritual universe, which is governed by spiritual laws. But damn it, what the hell? What the frack, right? Who are these people who aren't getting with the program? Why is that not getting with the program? Because there is a stirring, there is a revealing going on, and we are all here together in this creative place, responding to the call of spirit. We all going to respond differently, but I just want you to know that today we are, well, this whole month, we're looking at the first 4 chapters of our textbook, the Science of Mind textbook. And today is about the way it works, this power, this presence. Last week it was the thing itself. And that means that creative presence, that God that is not retaliatory, that is not keeping score, that is not a God of resistant personality, but is actually that energetic love that has created and sustained all life, that keeps the planets in their orbits, that keeps the rain falling down, that keeps the sun shining and the moon, all of that. That is the order. That is the order. And yet within that framework, there will be creation. There will be creation. And when 2 or more are gathered, there will be friction. There will be friction. And that's why we come together today, to realize that we are all walking in this place in divine intention. And yeah, we're going to run into each other, and there will be friction, and there will be growth. And bear in mind that that little grain of sand and that oyster only becomes a pearl because of the friction. Because of the friction. Don't you hate that metaphor? We are exploring today how consciousness creates our reality. And I want you to walk away thinking about 2 ideas. There is, number 1, there is an intelligence that responds to our thoughts. A capital I intelligence. A universal mind, that presence and that power that surrounds and fills us responds to our thoughts. The second idea is this. In your life, in my life, what is going on in response to those thoughts that I am thinking? If this intelligence responds to my thoughts, what am I co-creating with that intelligence because of what I'm thinking? So Ernest Holmes wrote this, and we hear this quote a lot. There is a power for good in the universe greater than you are, and you can use it. But he also writes this: we are surrounded by a universal mind into which we may speak our word, and that word becomes law unto the thing for which it is spoken. You and I are speaking our word all the time. And so is everybody else. Now, to the degree that we are conscious of the way we are speaking our word, thinking our thoughts, and holding those beliefs, and to the degree that we empower them with passion, with feeling, with fervor, that's where the creation begins to take place. And this law of creation, this law of cause and effect, here's the thing. It doesn't have any personal preference. It doesn't care whether you are old or young, white or black, gay or straight. It really doesn't care. And it also doesn't care if you are conscious or unconscious. It's going to create. It's going to create. So it is up to us to be aware of what we are thinking and how we are declaring and pronouncing our word about life. How, if we are looking at those things that others call facts, F-A-C-T-S, and I call a fact a fluid assessment of a current trend. But if we are going to let that fact define who and what we are, it becomes cause to our experience. Does that make sense? Because we take that in, that appearance of this is happening over here, this is happening over there, this person is really screwing that up, this person's doing pretty well here, and we say, well, that's the way the world is, that's the way I am, that is what I am, that is who I am, and it creates for us. However, if we are willing to look into that ground of being and say, tell me more, what is the real truth here, Spirit? Tell me the truth. Think of universal mind like the ocean. It is vast. It is unified. It contains everything. We are like waves on that ocean. We are not separate from it, but temporary individual expressions of the same water. Just as a wave cannot be separated from the ocean, our individual consciousness cannot be separated from universal consciousness. So all of us are participating in that universal consciousness, all of us. So it is up to us to be very clear about how clean that water is that's coming into our consciousness, right? How clean those thoughts are. What are we holding, presenting, and empowering and energizing? So understand this. I'm going to do this a lot today because because it was one of those weeks. You might have noticed. When tragedy strikes, we often feel separate, isolated in our fear and grief. But here's the thing, unity, capital U-N-I-T-Y, is the truth. Oneness is the truth. What affects one affects all. This is not just poetry, it's the foundational reality of existence. We are one of and one with a greater presence and power. We are one with and one of a greater presence and power. That power is love. That is life. It is, again, that thing that has created and sustains this entire universe. The planets in their orbit, so they're not just dancing all over and doing their own, I think Mars wants to go here, and Venus is saying this, and Saturn's going, oh, I have rings. I want to go round and round. No, it's not that. There's order here. So we have this thing. We call it cause and effect, and we also call it the law of mind, this universal mind in action. So you might have noticed that we pray in a different way in this place. We don't beg, we don't ask, we don't beseech, we don't bargain or negotiate with God. We don't do a transactional or quid pro quo kind of deal, and we don't audition for our worthiness or deservedness. You and I have nothing to prove to the universal creative process and presence. We have nothing to prove to that power. We are here, we are breathing, that's enough. That's enough. So in this way that we pray, we call it spiritual mind treatment. And the reason we call it that is because we are treating our minds to think in a more unified, whole, loving way. Just as you go to a doctor and you get a treatment for I don't know, for anything, it is that same idea. We are here to give a treatment to the way we are thinking so that we can up-level our thinking, so we can raise that thinking. When we go to a doctor, it's so that we can raise our level of health. We are raising our level of thinking. That's why we do a treatment. And the first thing we do in that is we anchor in knowing that we are surrounded and filled by the infinite and always responsive, loving presence of Spirit itself. That's the first thing we do. And we do that so that we will remember that we're not alone, that there is a presence that's infinite that responds to us. We are not just out here trying to find our way through the ethers. We are not alone. Not in the bad B Martian movies, there's something out there, you're not alone, but and it's more that there is this thing in here. It is in here. It surrounds and fills us. So in our recognition, when we speak that word of recognition, when we start our prayers, we recognize that something greater. We are consciously giving ourselves this amazing, awesome, really, really big context in which to pray. It's funny, I've talked to people who have been in this teaching for a long time, and one of the things I've heard is, why do you have all of these steps in prayer? Why do you do it that way? It's because we want to anchor ourselves in the knowing that there is something greater. And there are times when we have our own personal 9/11, or we have an experience like Minnesota, where we have to remind ourselves that there is a greater presence and power. That's why we go back to these steps, to recognize there is one life. That life is God. That infinite presence and power is all there is. Now, there are effects because people make choices. And we are all here living according to our choices and reaction to theirs. But there is one infinite law that has created and sustains this entire universe. It did not just do it and then abandon us. It is forever creating through us and as us. So in this prayer, once we have saturated and immersed ourselves in a greater context of God, we make a claim. We declare a truth, a spiritual truth about that thing we want to experience. We speak our word. And we know that our word isn't just hanging out there in the ethers, hoping to catch a random positive breeze or some sort of pink fairy dust. It's not that. We work with law, spiritual law. We know that when we speak our word, we are part of this thing called God, and we are using that same creative power and energy that God is. We speak our word knowing that we are working with spiritual law. Now, if this word God has some baggage for you, or you have baggage around that, that's fine. I want to invite you to use another word. Use light. Use love. Use life, infinite mind, great spirit. Use what works for you so that you don't stand in your own way of grokking this greater truth. Because we don't want to block our blessing. Everybody is here to have blessing and transformation. But if we stand in the way of it because that word triggers me, well, good luck with that. We want to move beyond those triggers. We have to move beyond those triggers because we're here to grow. It's not a static experience. Emma Curtis Hopkins wrote, "Your word is the presence and power of God in operation." My word is the presence and power of God in operation. Let's say that. My word is the presence and power of God in operation. Say it again. My word is the presence and power of God in operation. Breathe that in. Breathe that in. Your word is not separate from spiritual law. It is not separate. Our thoughts and beliefs are absolutely energized by that same creative energy that we call God or spirit or life, because our thoughts and our beliefs, and here's the thing, become the creative authors of our lives. Our thoughts and beliefs create our lives. Our perceptions are framed by our thoughts and beliefs. We have these thoughts and beliefs which create opinions and perceptions. They act as filters, and they create, because as we perceive, so do we receive. Does that make sense? As we perceive through the eyes and ears of love, we become available to love. As we perceive through the eyes and ears of peace, we become available to peace. As we perceive through the eyes and ears of possibility, we become available to possibility. Conversely, And here's the big, big aha. When we perceive through the eyes and ears of fear, separation, anger, judgment, and shame, we become available to those ideas. We magnetize to that. So Wayne Dyer wrote, "You're not stuck where you are unless you decide to be." Thanks a lot, Wayne. The law of mind works like a garden. The soil, which is universal mind, doesn't judge or care what seeds you plant. It grows weeds as readily as roses. Your thoughts are the seeds. The law is the fertile soil that receives them impartially and brings forth exactly what was planted. You don't force a seed to grow. You plant it properly and trust the soil to do its work, right? Here's what's happening right now. We are, as a collective, planting seeds. The world is planting seeds. This country is planting seeds. Every thought of fear, every word of hatred, every act of violence is a seed. But so is every thought of compassion, every word of truth-telling, every act of solidarity and protection. Those are big, Herkin seeds. Those are the seeds that we energize, that we water, that we nourish, that we make sure that they get everything they need. And Emma Curtis Hopkins again wrote, whatever you think you create, whatever you say, you get. So what are we saying? What are we thinking? And what are we creating? It doesn't mean that we caused this tragedy through wrong thinking. That would be victim blaming, and it's spiritual malpractice. I don't go there. But it does mean that as individuals, we get to choose what seeds we're going to plant in response to this tragedy. We get to choose the seeds we're going to plant. And I often say that we can react or we can respond. Reaction is that thing where you just go, ugh. Response is where we take a breath. We turn within. And we ask, what am I to know? Who am I to be in this? What is mine to do? So as a collective, as a community, as a country, the consciousness of a nation, a community, a movement, these are real ideas that create conditions. But it doesn't mean we have to have a majority of people thinking this way in order to drown out this over here. It simply means that we go forward in the higher truth, knowing that God is here in, as, and through us. We call forth a greater knowing. We are here to establish a sense of a creative mass of love, right? That's the greater idea. And in fact, we don't even have to create it. We just have to generate more of it, a more responsiveness, more energy around it. So we have responsibility. We can add to the consciousness of fear and division, or we can add to the consciousness of justice, of compassion, and unity. Because the law will respond to that which we say, that which we think, that which we do. From the smallest idea to the largest idea. When we hold a clear mental image of a just, compassionate society with feeling and acceptance, the universe responds. This is not passive wishing. It's active spiritual work that precedes and empowers physical action. It allows us to move forth in being guided. That's when we ask that question, what is mine to do? So we're not forcing change through rage alone. We're aligning with the highest truth and allowing it to work through us. Now understand that spiritual treatment, spiritual practice is not a substitute for action in this world. It's the foundation that makes our action effective because it's inspired. It is sustainable and it's aligned with principle rather than reactive emotions. Does that make sense? We want to align with the highest truth possible. Everyone's still awake, right? Okay, good. Ernest Holmes said that what we outwardly are and what we experience is always an outpicturing of what we have first inwardly conceived. So, what are we conceiving? And are we aware of what it is we are conceiving? What are we conceiving? Ernest Holmes taught that life is a mirror and will reflect back to us what we think. So this mirror doesn't argue with us and it doesn't improve the image. It just simply reflects back what we present to it. And I've talked about this before where I get up in the morning and my hair is messy. I don't take the brush and start brushing the mirror. It doesn't work that way. I have to brush my actual hair. That's what I have to shift. So when you stand before a mirror with a frown, it gives you a frown. If you stand with a smile, it shows a smile. It never lies. It never adds its own opinion. It just is. This is the same thing with spiritual law. It's like electricity. You know, you go into your kitchen, you don't even think. You just hit the switch, the light goes on. Now, the light works for you regardless of who you are, how you are, what you are, whether you like electricity or hate electricity. It doesn't have an opinion about you. It's not judging you saying, well, you know, you gained 3 pounds this week. I don't think I should turn the light on. It doesn't do any of that. It doesn't care. It doesn't give a rip. It just gives what it will respond to what we give it. And it's the same thing with spiritual law. It just responds, right? And here's the thing, with electricity, it's always flowing. It's always flowing. It's just when we hit that switch that it's flowing in the way that we have decided to personalize it. But it's always flowing. This law is always flowing. Thich Nhat Hanh wrote, "The mind is like a field, and every mental and physical act is a seed that is planted and will grow into our future." So this field, what it is showing us and what is showing up in the mirror of our society is a great big fear of the other. That's the mirror. Big fear of the other. A dehumanization of immigrants, people who don't look like what we think they should look like. Systemic violence is being presented as protection. And there's a denial of our fundamental unity. There's a denial, but we don't have to play there. That is not the garden we have to be in. That is not the garden we water, that we nurture, that we take care of. That is not the garden. We are looking for a critical mass of love, not a majority of pain and rage and resentment and retaliation. Retaliation, governmental retaliation, by the way, is political. Leading from love and compassion is not political. I am treading this line right now because people often say, well, you can't talk politics on the pulpit. Thank you. See, my brother Skip says I can, so. The politics that I want us to be looking at are how are we loving? How are we being? How are we being compassionate? How are we creating? I mentioned earlier at the beginning of the talk, because I was working with this idea that the most powerful thing we can do right now, believe it or not, is to forgive. Because forgiveness is how you and I get our power back. Forgiveness is how we move forward. And forgiveness is how we call forth the highest that is within all beings everywhere in order to live from that high, holy place that is within, that presence, that God presence, that Buddha presence, that Allah presence, whatever it is that you call it. And so when we choose to forgive, it's not because we are looking for reconciliation or retaliation or keeping score. Because, by the way, you and I did not apply for the job of judge. So now, if you are walking in the job of judge, if that is the job that you think you have, I want to invite you to step back into your lane of spiritual human. The judging is not, that is not your job. And I mean, you might get paid, maybe you're a judge at the court. That's not what I'm talking about. If you want your power back, forgive. you start with our forgiveness of ourselves. Forgiveness is simply that thing that says, I am willing to give love here. That's all it is. It is a re-identification of who and what we are and remembering to let go of that which we are not. That which we are not. And we must let go of that in order to have the space to create that which we are. There is so much that we are being called to remember about who we are and to step forth in that power. Last night I went to an incredible art exhibit, and it was by our brother Ed Rubin here. And in his artist statement, it's a really profound statement, but as I read it last night, I looked at this and it really stirred me. All of us have accepted ideas or played roles or have been in situations and relationships that were not really what we wanted or were not what we thought we wanted. We are born into belief systems that carve grooves in our heads about success, normalcy, power, sex, inferiority, superiority, race, class, masculinity, femininity, and beauty. At what point do we stop listening to the voices placed in our head and start listening to that one true voice within us, our sacred self? So part of what that requires is letting go of whatever's in the way. When I was a teenager, I learned how to change the tires on my car. Now, it was an interesting thing because there's a whole process that happens with that. You know, first of all, you got to pull the car over. You got to stop, got to assess the situation. Then you get the tools out, you get the new tire out. I don't think they even put tires in new cars now, do they? Anyway, well, I'm old school. You get those tools out and you lift the car, right? You lift the vehicle. You and I are here to lift ourselves as vehicles. Now, this is fundamental. Before you put that new tire on, you know what you have to do? You have to take the old tire off. You can't put the new one on over the old one. You can't just like, I'm just going to power this thing over here. I'm just going to shove it in here and squeeze it in and just hope that that old tire doesn't cause any problem. It doesn't work that way. You know, simple physics tells us two things cannot occupy the same place at the same time. It's the same thing with thought. So with that tire, you have to take the old one off. You remove that which is no longer working for the journey, for the vehicle. You take it off. We remove it. We clean that space so that that new tire, that new thing can go on in order to move us forward, to get back into our journey. So we're going to do that process right now. Today is the day. We do this once a year, and you were given some special paper when you came in, water-soluble paper and pencil. And if you did not have that, I'm going to ask that the lights come up a little bit, please. If you do not have that, please raise your hand. I want to make sure you have it, because this process will only work with this paper. It's special paper. It's blessed paper. And band, I'd love for you to participate too if you want to. So this is a cleansing bowl. We used to do a burning bowl, but that's really smoky and dirty, and I don't like what happens. I can't breathe with that. And our insurance agents don't like that either. So we do a cleansing bowl now. So and I'm going to invite our practitioners up as well. So here's what's going to happen. This is the process where we remove the tire. We remove the tire. Walt Whitman wrote, "Re-examine all you have been told. Dismiss what insults your soul. In what ways are you being forced or expected to live a life that is an insult to your soul, your values, your convictions, and highest truth?" So I'm going to invite you, in a moment we're going to go into a brief meditation. And you will have the opportunity to just briefly write down what it is that you are ready now to release, to get rid of, to remove from the vehicle in order to create space for that new idea to emerge. That idea might be one of creativity. of worthiness, of relationship, of abundance, of source, whatever that is. And next week is when we complete this process with our white stone ritual. And that's when we will call forth whatever it is that wants to be born. But first we have to cleanse, right? We have to cleanse, to clean out the wound in order for healing to happen. So, let's go ahead and turn within. We relax into this space. I invite everyone to simply be where your body is, letting everything that has happened before this moment just simply be set aside in order that you and I might commune with the higher truth that is saying, my darling, I am here to love you. Let me guide you to that which is no longer serving you on this journey. Let me guide you as to what is possible. Are you ready now to let go of the ideas that have limited you? Is there an idea? Is there a specific idea? Is there a specific form of a relationship that it's time to let go of? Is there a belief about limitation? Is there a sense of unworthiness? Is it judgment? For me, personally, Dr. Sidney, I am going to be dropping the word judgment into this space because it's time for me to step away from that reality. So I invite you to just simply commune with your soul. Take a breath and take a couple of minutes. Just write words, ideas. You don't have to be long and articulate because God knows exactly what you mean and what you need. Your soul knows exactly what it's doing. And when you are ready, I invite you to stand and to come forward and drop that paper into the bowl in the water where our practitioners will agitate that water and it will dissolve into the nothingness from whence it has come. We clear that space. Alleluia. 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 And you can leave the pencil here. Alleluia. Thank you. Alleluia. Now, if you are at home, if you are one of our live streamers, I hope that you are participating. Make your list. You can tear it up into many pieces and flush it. You can burn it, because I'm not in charge of your insurance. But find a way to release it so that it does not come back. Let it go, mindfully knowing that you are letting go. You are creating space for the truth of who you are that is coming forth. Hallelujah. This is where we let go of resentments, old identities, fear. are the artist. Your consciousness is the brush. Life is consciousness. We are here to express. Continue to come up. We can continue to do this. Universal mind is this infinite canvas. It is this blank sheet upon which we write, we draw, we create. What you paint appears. You've been painting all along, and now we are going to paint with intention. This entire year is about that intention and that clarity. So this week I want you to notice where your thoughts are going. Lovingly bless them, pull them back. I am the master of my thoughts. I get to think what I choose. I choose what I think. I am here to love. I am here to be clear. I am that. I am. Let's pray. So once again, we turn within, knowing that our actions have created wonderful, great vibrations in the ocean of our consciousness. That as we release and let go of that which we are called to let go of, because our consciousness is squeezing it out of our experience, we let it go, it dissolves, it goes into the nothingness from whence it came, and we replace it now with openness, with willingness, with availability to peace, to love, to possibility, that we know that we are here for good, we are here for God, we are here for love. Anything less than that, we simply bless and let it go on its way. It is not part of this vibration anymore. Our garden is clean and we are ready. How wonderful to know that we are blessed, that we choose to be wise. We choose to allow the infinite wisdom of Spirit itself to guide us, to guard us, to protect us, to lift us up, to shift us into the deep awareness of knowing that right where we are, God is, and all is well. All is well. So we bless this church. We bless all churches, all paths to God, all mosques, all ashrams, all temples, all synagogues. Wherever people gather, we know that life is present, love is present, and God bless us, everyone. And we lovingly bless our children, knowing that they walk this path with joy, with enthusiasm, with possibility. We bless all of it. And we bless Minnesota. We bless all beings involved in that. We bless the ICE agents, knowing that there is that within them which is true, which is God, which is light. We call it forth. We know that as we bless it, it shines brighter. It shines brighter, as do we. I'm grateful for all of this. I release this word into law, knowing it is so, and so it is, and together we say, Amen.